Doctor, you're probably wondering why I've called you here tonight.
Yes. Well, my therapist clearly turned off his phone, so...
I'm sure. Now, are you expecting, as a therapist, on occasions like this, they always say, you know, the Super Bowl, people get so angry and they're rooting for their teams and there's a huge uptick in arguments and violence and all kinds of other things. Do you expect something similar for an event like this?
Well, I think that a lot of people are going to be having arguments. I don't know that it's going to be domestic violence, but I think there's definitely going to be a lot of arguments happening with friends, families, workplaces, all of it.
And you think because this is a time when the country is really focused on this and there's really no way to escape it, and so whatever schisms are there are going to be exacerbated?
I think they are, and also just because we're so polarized. And I think that people don't know how to have conversations about the issues. It doesn't even become about the issues anymore, as we just saw.
But we are siloed. Isn't the siloing of the nation keep us from having to have those conversations? Because you don't really run into those people that you disagree with too much, except on Thanksgiving.
Well, I think you run into them on social media. And I think that that's where a lot of this is happening. And then people get very upset by what they're seeing on social media. And I can understand when we look at the rates of anxiety and depression. You know, we say in therapy, before diagnosing someone with depression, make sure they aren't surrounded by assholes, right? So I'm not going to name who those assholes might be.
Is that really a thing? Like, I have depression, and you're like, well.
Well, sometimes it's like, I understand.
Look at who drove you here.
Look at who sent you here. Because often the people who come to therapy are the people who are coming to therapy because the people who should be in therapy are not coming to therapy.
That just blew my mind. So people are coming because they feel they don't have an outlet for their frustrations, and the only outlet they might have, social media, is toxic.
Well, I think that what you see on social media, again, is a lot of this sort of, you know, name-calling, and there, again, there's not a lot of nuance, there's not a lot of complexity, it's a lot of just people fighting. It was like that golf exchange on the, you know, on the debate. It's those kinds of things where people are talking about completely irrelevant things, or they're just uninformed. And I think that people don't
Uninformed and irrelevant, a presidential debate. How do you deal with... There is an existential fear to this. I mean, for social media to keep people engaged, for news organizations to keep people watching, they have to ramp up the urgency and the existential nature of the crisis. So you're sort of torn between these two impulses. One is to not participate, which would be abdicating civic responsibility. But the other would be to bathe yourself in this existential crisis. What choice do you have?
Right. Well, we do have a choice, because so look at anxiety. There's productive anxiety and unproductive anxiety. So,
what?
Well, think about it. If you didn't have anxiety, you wouldn't be able to be safe. That's why we have anxiety. It was like, there's a bear. You better have anxiety. Your unproductive anxiety is, I'm just going to stand here. Productive anxiety is, I'm going to do something about this.
See, that's so weird, because my anxiety has never saved me from bears, but it often convinces me I'm not lovable. So how I shared too much. How do you...
I was just going to say...
How do you separate the two? Because I didn't want to watch the debates tonight, but I do work once a week now, so I have to. Because it's toxic to me. I know that. I have to participate. But how does that anxiety of watching it, how is that a relic of something that's good for me?
It's good for you because then you can take action. By the way, I hope you're taking action on the unlovable thing. I hope you're getting some help with that.
Little thing called mushrooms, baby. Microdose away. Sorry.
But it's helpful because you say, okay, there are two ways you can respond to this. You can say, I'm going to put my head in the sand and not engage, which is, I hope, not the option that people here are taking.
Correct.
And you can also say, oh, I'm just spinning in anxiety, I'm doom scrolling, I'm just, you know, getting all worked up.
Yes.
That's not helpful. That's unproductive anxiety. And then there's productive anxiety where you say, what can I do? Well, you can get involved in a campaign, you can volunteer, you can please vote. You can get the people around you to vote. There are things that you can do. The thing that you want to do is you want to say, what can I control here? And that's where you take your anxiety and you say, it's going to motivate me to do something productive.
Does sitting in your underwear screaming at the TV count as action?
No.
Doc, you're losing me here. Have you seen an effect of this on relationships, on marriages, on families? Is this separating people at a much deeper, more emotional level than what we're understanding?
Yes, absolutely. You know, when I see couples in therapy, often when they come in, the person, you know, you say, what's going on? And the person wants something to change, but what they want to change is the other person, the person sitting right there.
Sure.
They don't think I want to change myself or I have a role in this. And I see that in what happens around these political conversations is that people don't say, oh, maybe I am not being curious about why they think what they think, or I'm not really getting to the bottom of it, and I'm just, you know, we're just yelling at each other about this.
Are you seeing this in married couples where politics has driven a wedge to them that they can't overcome?
Oh,
or
absolutely.
How do you traverse a political conversation with a couple?
Yeah. Well, there's this great phrase in therapy. It's saying, I wonder. So it starts with, I wonder.
I got it.
I wonder, you know, it's kind of like, you know, I wonder if instead of taking another drink, maybe you should take a walk when you're feeling sad, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to...
Unfortunately, it's a live show. We're out of time. I always say, I use that all the time. I wonder why you're such an asshole. And that usually works. Check out Lori's book. Maybe you should talk to someone. Her column in The Atlantic and her dear